Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Harrison, and today I want to share a story that might just keep you glued to your screen. Imagine you're sitting in the VIP section watching Rafael Nadal compete in the French Open final in Paris. The atmosphere is electric, the crowd is roaring, and you're living a dream trip, a reward for years of dedication to your work. Then suddenly, ping, a message pops up on your phone. It's from your boss. You open it expecting congratulations or a routine work question. Instead, the words hit you like a punch to the face. Pathetic employees like you don't deserve success. You're fired. Your heart stops. The world around you blurs. That's exactly what happened to me in the summer of 2024. But this story isn't just about a cruel firing. It's about how one message brought down an empire, changed my life, and taught me a lesson we all need to hear. Stick with me, because this tale is full of twists, sweet revenge, and profound lessons you'll want to hear until the very end. I worked for Gravora Group, a tech consulting firm in Chicago, for 6 years as a senior strategy director. When I started, the company didn't have a single international client. We were a small Chicago-based outfit, but I was hired to change that. I spent 2 years learning German and French, flying back and forth across Europe, building relationships with tech executives in London, Frankfurt, Oslo, and dozens of other cities. I remember late nights in Berlin, hotels translating emails to avoid cultural missteps. I missed family dinners, my son's birthdays, all to ensure Gravora had a foothold in Europe. And it paid off. In 6 years, I secured 43 major clients generating $7-8 million in contract revenue. Thanks to me, the European branch accounted for 37% of the company's total revenue. I was proud, but I didn't realize my success made me a target for my boss, Riley Denton. Riley was the kind of boss you might recognize always taking credit, but dodging responsibility. When I secured a $12 million deal with Nexora Labs, Riley stood before the company, patted my shoulder, and called me the future of international business. Behind closed doors, he told the board it was his leadership vision that sealed the deal. I saw warning signs months earlier. Riley started excluding me from leadership meetings. He hired his nephew, Trevor Denton, as Assistant Director of European Relations without consulting me. Trevor, 26, had an MBA from a second-tier school, no international business experience, and only spoke English. I tried to ignore it, thinking my results would protect me. My wife, Catherine, warned me. She said Riley's plotting something, Jacob. People like him don't bring in family unless they're pushing someone out. I laughed it off, thinking she was overreacting. I was wrong. In June 2024, I flew to Paris to watch the French Open, a reward for the Nexora Labs deal. I was front row right by the court, feeling on top of the world. Rafael Nadal was playing, and the vibe was unbeatable. Then Riley's message arrived. Pathetic employees like, you don't deserve success. You're fired. Clear your desk by Monday. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The crowd cheered as Nadal scored, but I heard nothing. No call, no meeting, no explanation, just a cowardly text from the man I'd helped build an empire for. I felt betrayed, like my world had collapsed. But then something miraculous happened. The man next to me, a British gentleman about 55, with an expensive watch and calm demeanor, turned and asked, "Everything all right?" I looked closer and recognized him instantly. Gerard Bellamy, CEO of Lunar Ventures, Gravora's biggest rival in the European tech consulting market. I'd met Gerard once at a conference, In Amsterdam 2 years prior, he was the kind of leader who noticed everything. I forced a smile, saying, "Just work stuff." But in my mind, I knew this wasn't a random moment. I showed him Riley's text. Gerard read it, raised an eyebrow, and said, "What a fascinating moment. Care to continue this over dinner? I know a great spot near the Louvre." That's when I realized Riley had just made the biggest mistake of his career, and he didn't even know it. A spark of hope ignited. Maybe this wasn't the end, but the start of something bigger. Before I go on, let me pause to share a real-life story, because I know many of you have faced workplace betrayal too. Meet Sarah Thompson, a friend from Seattle. Sarah was a marketing director for a tech startup. In 2022, she built an ad campaign that boosted sales by 40, but her boss took all the credit and then demoted her, claiming the team needed restructuring. Sarah was crushed, but she didn't give up. She quit, joined a rival firm, and within a year, led a campaign that won a national award. Her old company, they lost millions when clients left. Sarah's story reminds me that the worst moments can lead to the greatest opportunities if you're willing to stand up and act. Back to my story. After Riley's text, I flew back to Chicago. Sunday night, my mind racing with plans. Gerard had offered me a job at Lunar Ventures, 30% higher salary, company equity, and a chance to lead their U.S. expansion. I knew this was my shot to turn failure into triumph. Monday, I walked into Gravora's office, calm but determined. Riley was in a meeting room with Trevor and Patricia, the HR director. He faked cheerfulness, asking, "How was Paris?" "Jacob," I replied. "Very insightful." Patricia slid a severance package across the table. Minimal payout, a non-compete clause, and a demand to return company property. Riley said, "We're restructuring the European branch under Trevor's leadership. Your services are no longer needed." Trevor sat there smirking like he'd won a prize. I signed the papers without arguing, surprising Riley. He thought I'd beg. But I knew something he didn't. My clients wouldn't stay with Trevor. Think about this for a second. In business, especially in Europe, relationships are everything. I'd spent 6 years building trust with clients like Klaus Weber from Chris Tristan Global or Marie Dubois from Hollowgate Systems. They didn't work with Gravora because of the logo. They worked with me because I understood their needs, their culture. Riley thought he could replace me with Trevor, who knew nothing about the European market. That was a fatal mistake. I remember a time in Oslo when Klaus invited me to his home for dinner with his family, a rare gesture in Nordic business culture. It wasn't just business. It was respect. Riley didn't get that, and he was about to pay for it. By Tuesday, things started unraveling for Riley. Klaus called the office, asking to speak with me about a contract amendment. Patricia patched him through to Trevor, who fumbled for 15 minutes, unable to explain why he was the new point of contact. Klaus hung up and called me directly. "Jacob, what's going on?" "This kid knows nothing about our deal." I said I couldn't share details, but would reach out soon. Marie Dubois was blunter. "If you're not at Gravora, we need to talk about our contract now." By Friday, Nexora Labs sent a formal letter canceling their $12 million contract, citing significant changes in account management. Riley panicked, calling me 6 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails about misunderstandings and hasty decisions. I didn't respond, but here's where it gets juicier. I learned Riley didn't just fire me on a whim. He'd been planning it for months, forwarding my client emails to his account, telling people I was planning to quit. Worse, he was negotiating to sell the European branch to a Berlin-based consulting firm, aiming to pocket a huge profit. Trevor was just a placeholder until the deal closed. Riley thought he was clever, but he forgot one thing. European clients don't work with people they don't trust. When I called Gerard and told him about Riley's plan, he laughed. "This is the greatest gift Riley could give us," he said. "If clients are unhappy with the transition, they'll look for a new partner. That's us." I flew to London by Tuesday, and by Wednesday I'd signed with Lunar Ventures Director of U.S. Operations, significant equity, and full control over client relationships. I called Klaus first, explaining I'd joined Lunar Ventures and would continue supporting him from London. "Much better," Klaus said. "Lunar Ventures has a stellar reputation in Europe. When can we transfer our contract?" Marie agreed instantly, saying, "Finally, someone who gets our business." Within a week, I confirmed contract transfers with 6 major clients worth $42 million. Riley had no idea, while Trevor was still trying to convince clients he could handle their needs. By the following Monday, Gravora's office was in chaos. Klaus sent notices canceling 3 contracts. Marie demanded the return of all proprietary documents. A Norwegian pharmaceutical company canceled a negotiation meeting. Riley called me, nearly shouting, "What are you doing, Jacob?" "You're destroying the European branch," I replied calmly. "No, Riley, you destroyed it when you fired me via text. I'm just helping clients find better service." By Wednesday, the German firm started questioning the value of buying a branch with no clients. Trevor quit. And by Friday, the board fired Riley for losing $87 million in revenue. But the story doesn't end there. Patricia, the HR director, called me revealing that Riley had faked Trevor's hiring records and forwarded my emails 6 weeks prior. She joined Lunar Ventures, bringing evidence of Riley's deceit. 6 months later, I was in my new London office overlooking the Thames, leading Lunar Ventures' U.S. expansion. We signed 14 U.S. clients, opened offices in Boston and Seattle. My wife joined me, and we bought a home in Hampstead. Meanwhile, Riley was spotted working as a stock clerk at a Chicago supermarket, haggard and defeated. But I want to share one more story to show you my experience isn't unique. Meet Mike Rodriguez, a software engineer from Austin. In 2023, Mike was fired from a startup for refusing to write unethical code. Jobless, he didn't give up. He freelanced, built an app that went viral, and sold it for $2 million in 2024. Mike, like me, turned betrayal into fuel. The lesson here: when someone knocks you down, don't stay there. Get up, use your skills and relationships, and find new opportunities. Riley's text in Paris could have destroyed me, but it set me free. And I want you to ask yourself, what's the text in your life? A rejection, a betrayal, a failure? Don't let it define you. Let it be the springboard to something greater. But let me keep going, because this story is far from over, and what happens next will leave you speechless. After Riley was fired by Gravora's board, I thought that was the end of him. But Riley wasn't the type to go quietly. He was a man fueled by arrogance, always believing he could turn the tables. I got an email one Monday morning, just a month after moving to London. The sender, Riley Denton. Subject: "We need to talk, Jacob." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. In the email, Riley wrote that he'd rethought what happened and wanted to meet in Chicago to discuss a mutually beneficial opportunity. I laughed. "What opportunity?" He'd fired me via text, tried to sell the branch I built, and now wanted to collaborate. But a part of me, maybe the part that wanted to see him fail again, made me reply, "I'll be in Chicago next week." Where that was my biggest mistake, because Riley was plotting a comeback I couldn't have anticipated. I flew to Chicago, not because I trusted Riley, but because I had a meeting with a new U.S. client for Lunar Ventures. I agreed to meet Riley at a small coffee shop in the Loop, a busy spot filled with rushing office workers. When I walked in, Riley was there, but he wasn't the Riley I knew. The expensive suits were gone, replaced by a wrinkled polo and cheap glasses. He looked like a man trying to hold on to appearances, but crumbling inside. "Jacob," he said, his voice straining to sound friendly, "thanks for coming." I sat down, said nothing, and waited. Then he dropped a bombshell. "I'm suing Gravora Group, and I want you to be my witness." I nearly choked on my coffee. Sue Gravora, the man who lost $87 million in revenue, fired for incompetence, now wanted to sue the company he'd ruined. Riley explained. He believed the board unfairly fired him. According to him, I sabotaged the European branch by poaching clients to Lunar Ventures, and he wanted me to testify that Gravora forced him to fire me as part of a larger strategy. In return, he promised to split the settlement if he won a sum he called millions. I stared at him, unable to believe his audacity. "Riley, I said you fired me via text. You plotted to sell the European branch. And now you want me to help you sue the company you destroyed?" He smiled, but it was the smile of a desperate man. "Jacob, we both know the truth doesn't matter. It's about who tells the better story." I left the coffee shop, my mind reeling. Riley wasn't just a coward, he was dangerous. I called Patricia now, Lunar Ventures European Operations Manager. "Patricia Riley's suing Gravora and wants to drag me into it," I said. She went quiet, then replied, "Jacob, there's something you need to know. Riley's not just suing Gravora. He's spreading rumors that you stole client data before you left." I felt my blood boil. Stole data I'd never touched anything beyond my contract documents. But Riley knew how to play dirty. He was trying to smear me, hoping to weaken my position at Lunar Ventures and pressure me to cooperate. I decided not to let Riley manipulate me again. I contacted my lawyer, who reviewed my old Gravora contract. Luckily, my non-compete clause only applied to Chicago-based firms, and Lunar Ventures was headquartered in London. Riley had no legal grounds to sue me for client transfers. But the data theft rumors were another issue. If not handled quickly, they could damage my reputation on both sides of the Atlantic. I called Gerard and told him everything. Gerard, as usual, was calm but sharp. "Jacob Riley's playing his final hand. We won't let him win. I'll get our legal team on this. But brace yourself, this will be a dirty fight." And dirty it was. A week later, I got an email from a Chicago journalist writing a story about toxic culture at Gravora Group. She asked if I'd comment on allegations that I exploited my position to steer clients to Lunar Ventures, causing severe financial harm to Gravora. I saw Riley's fingerprints all over it. He wasn't just spreading rumors, he was trying to turn it into a public narrative to destroy me. I declined to comment, but I knew I had to act. I asked Patricia to review all emails and internal records from my time at Gravora. She uncovered a bombshell. Riley hadn't just forwarded my client emails he'd forged, some making it look like I'd contacted Lunar Ventures before being fired. If those emails went public, I could face a lawsuit for ethical breaches. I felt like I was being pulled into a nightmare. But instead of panicking, I decided to turn Riley's threat into an opportunity. I worked with Lunar Ventures' legal team to build a defamation and forgery case against Riley. Patricia provided all the evidence, forged emails, Trevor's fake hiring records, and even internal memos showing Riley planned to sell the European branch 6 months before firing me. We sent Riley a legal cease and desist letter demanding he retract his claims and stop spreading rumors. In response, Riley doubled down. He hired a Chicago PR firm to launch a smear campaign, calling me a traitor who sabotaged Gravora from within. Articles started appearing on small news sites, and some former colleagues began receiving anonymous emails questioning my integrity. But Riley didn't know he was digging his own grave. One of my old clients, Klaus Weber from Christristen Global, called me after reading an article. "Jacob, I know you're not that kind of person," he said. "If you need me to testify about how you worked with us, just say the word." Marie Dubois reached out too, offering to write a public letter supporting me. Client support was one thing, but the real surprise came when yes, Trevor Denton Riley's nephew contacted me via an anonymous email account. He wrote Jacob, "I'm sorry for my part in Riley's plan. I didn't know he'd go this far. I have information that can help you." I couldn't believe it. Trevor, who'd smirked when I was fired, now wanted to switch sides. I met Trevor via a secure video call, not revealing my location. He looked stressed, constantly, glancing over his shoulder like he was being watched. Trevor revealed that Riley had pressured him to sign fake documents, including a false report that I'd contacted Lunar Ventures before being fired. He said Riley promised to take care of him if the branch sale went through, but when it collapsed, Riley blamed Trevor. "I don't want to go down with him," Trevor said. He sent me a USB with copies of internal emails where Riley instructed him to forge records and spread rumors about me. This was the silver bullet I needed. With Trevor's evidence, Lunar Ventures' legal team filed a lawsuit against Riley for defamation, forgery, and reputational harm. We also sent notices to the news sites running Riley's stories, demanding retractions, or facing litigation. Some sites quickly pulled the articles, but Riley didn't stop. He appeared on a local Chicago podcast, calling himself a victim of cancel culture and accusing me of selling out Gravora for personal gain. This time, he went too far. Gerard, who hated dirty games, decided to land the final blow. Lunar Ventures held a press conference in London where I shared my story, presented evidence of Riley's deceit, and invited Klaus and Marie to testify to my professionalism. The press conference was a hit. Articles shifted, calling Riley a failed ex-aho and praising me as a leader, standing against injustice. Riley tried to respond, but no one believed him anymore. By March 2025, he dropped his Gravora lawsuit and agreed to pay me an undisclosed settlement for the defamation case. I didn't need the money, I wanted justice, and I got it. Riley faded from the spotlight, and the last I heard, he was working at a convenience store in suburban Chicago, trying to rebuild from nothing. But my story isn't just about beating Riley. It's about finding the inner strength to overcome adversity. I remember a friend in Boston, Lisa Carter, who faced similar betrayal. Lisa, a software developer, designed a system that saved her company millions. But her boss took the credit and fired her when she asked for a promotion. Lisa sued, won, and now runs a $10 million startup. She told me Jacob betrayers never win in the long run. They just clear the path for us to shine. And she's right. Riley thought he could destroy me, but he only made me stronger. At Lunar Ventures, I kept building the U.S. business. We signed 10 new clients in 2025, including a major tech firm in Silicon Valley. I also started mentoring young employees, sharing my story to inspire them. One of them, a girl named Emily from Seattle, told me my story gave her the courage to confront a toxic boss. She joined a company that valued her and is now climbing the ranks. Moments like that made me realize my story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's been knocked down but chooses to get back up. And now, let me keep going, because this story still has shocks I never saw coming. After Riley settled and paid for his slander, I thought I was finally in the clear. I'd beaten him legally and reputationally, and Lunar Ventures was soaring. But if I'd learned anything from Riley Denton, it's that people like him never truly quit. They lurk, they wait, and they come back with a nastier plan. On a Friday afternoon, as I was leaving my London office to head home for dinner with Catherine, my phone rang, an unknown Chicago number. I hesitated, but answered. The voice on the other end sent chills down my spine. Jacob, long time no see. Do you remember me? It's Trevor Denton, Trevor Riley's nephew, the reluctant ally in my lawsuit. But his voice wasn't shaky or apologetic like before. This time he sounded confident, almost smug. I have something you need to see, he said. Meet me in Chicago next week, or you'll regret it. I almost hung up thinking it was a cheap trick, but something in Trevor's tone stopped me. He wasn't just threatening. He knew something. I called Gerard immediately, recounting the call. Gerard, ever calm but razor sharp, said Jacob Trevor's not as smart as Riley, but he's dangerous because he has nothing to lose. Find out what he wants, but be careful. Don't let him pull you into a trap. I agreed to fly to Chicago, not because I trusted Trevor, but because I needed to know his game. Before going, I contacted my lawyer, asking them to prepare for any potential blackmail or new legal stunt. I met Trevor at a dingy bar in Chicago's Wicker Park, where dim lights and the stench of stale beer filled the air. Trevor looked unrecognizable, not the smug kid in a cheap suit. He was thinner hair long and messy eyes, like he hadn't slept in a week. He slid a USB across the table, saying, "Open this, Jacob. But I warn you, it'll change everything." I didn't touch the USB instead, asking Trevor, "What do you want money a job? Or is this Riley's game?" He smirked, but it was bitter. Riley's done. This is about me and about making things right. But if you don't want the truth, toss the USB. Just don't blame me when it all falls apart. I took the USB to my hotel, plugging it into an old offline laptop to avoid viruses. What I saw made my heart stop. It contained emails, recordings, and internal Gravora documents, but not from my time there. These were new from after Riley's firing. The emails showed Trevor secretly working with a group of ex-Gravora employees fired alongside Riley to build a new consulting firm called Apex Solutions. They were targeting my old clients, Klaus Weber, Marie Dubois, even Nexora Labs, with a smear campaign against Lunar Ventures. They accused Lunar Ventures of using unethical tactics to poach Gravora's clients. And worse, claimed I'd sold Gravora's confidential data to Lunar Ventures for my director role. But the real shock was a recording. In it, I heard Trevor's voice, and another I recognized instantly, Amanda Kline Gravora's, former CFO, who'd left before I was fired. Amanda, always neutral in office drama, was the mastermind behind Apex Solutions. In the recording, she said Jacob's the key. If we can make clients doubt him, Lunar Ventures loses everything. Trevor, you need to find a way to get him to cooperate, or we destroy him completely. Trevor replied, I have a plan. I'll make him think I'm helping him, then flip the script. My blood ran cold. Trevor hadn't reached out to make amends. He was luring me into a trap to sabotage Lunar Ventures and reclaim clients for Apex. I sent the data to Lunar Ventures' legal team. They confirmed the emails and recordings were real, and crucially showed Apex Solutions was violating unfair competition laws. But there was a catch. Some USB documents were altered to make me look complicit in leaking Gravora data. If those leaked publicly, I could face lawsuits and Lunar Ventures' reputation would take a hit. Gerard called me after reviewing the evidence. Jacob, this is a new war, and it's bigger than Riley. Amanda Kline is a formidable foe. She doesn't just want clients, she wants to destroy us to build Apex on our ashes. He proposed a bold plan. Instead of defending, we'd strike first using Trevor's evidence to turn the tables. But first, I needed to know Trevor's true allegiance. He'd given me the USB, but was it part of the plan? Or a genuine betrayal of Amanda? I arranged a second meeting with Trevor, this time in a Chicago public park, to avoid recordings. I cut to the chase. Trevor, I saw the USB. Be straight. Are you helping Amanda or saving yourself? He looked around, visibly nervous, then said, Jacob, I don't want to do this. Amanda's blackmailing me. She has proof I forged documents for Riley and threatened to turn me over to the police if I didn't cooperate. I gave you the USB because I want out. I didn't fully trust him, but I saw an opportunity to make Trevor a real ally. I offered Trevor a deal if he provided more evidence against Amanda and testified in court. Lunar Ventures would shield him from legal fallout. In return, he had to hand over everything: emails, texts, any contact with Amanda. Trevor agreed, but with a condition: I want a job, Jacob. Not at Lunar Ventures, but you have connections. Help me start over. I didn't love helping Trevor after everything, but he was key to taking down Amanda. I agreed to find him an opportunity, but only after the dust settled. With Trevor's cooperation, we built a lawsuit against Apex Solutions, accusing them of conspiracy, unfair competition, defamation, and using forged information to poach clients. We also contacted Klaus and Marie, warning them about Apex's smear campaign. Both were furious, especially Klaus, who said, Jacob, I've worked with you for 6 years. I know who you are. If Apex thinks they can fool me, they're wrong. Klaus and Marie agreed to testify, confirming they switched to Lunar Ventures because of trust in me, not any tricks. But Amanda wasn't easy to beat. Just before we filed the lawsuit, she launched a final blow. An article in a major Chicago paper accused Lunar Ventures and me of market manipulation to steal Gravora's clients. The article cited anonymous sources from Apex and included forged USB documents. Lunar Ventures stock dropped 10% in a day, and I got dozens of emails from US prospects asking if the allegations were true. Gerard called an emergency meeting in London. Jacob, he said, we need to act fast, or Amanda will destroy everything we've built. We decided to fight back by going fully transparent. Lunar Ventures hosted a live stream on social media where I shared the entire story, from Riley's firing text to Amanda's plot and Trevor's role, I presented the USB emails and recordings, along with testimony from Trevor Klaus and Marie. I ended with a call to action. If you've ever been betrayed at work, don't stay silent. Stand up, tell the truth, and take back what's yours. The live stream went viral, racking up millions of views in 24 hours. Articles turned against Apex Solutions, calling Amanda a manipulator and praising Lunar Ventures for transparency. Amanda tried to hit back, but she was out of moves. Trevor testified in court, exposing her entire plan. Klaus and Marie provided evidence of Apex's fraudulent emails. By June 2025, Apex Solutions collapsed under legal pressure and lost all clients. Amanda was banned from the tech consulting industry for 5 years and vanished from Chicago. Destination unknown. Trevor, as promised, was referred to a job at a small Denver firm. He's no friend, but I kept my word. To me, it wasn't about forgiveness. It was about doing the right thing. But my story doesn't stop there. After the Apex lawsuit, Lunar Ventures became a focal point in Europe and the US. We signed 20 new clients in 2025, including a Seattle tech giant. I was invited to speak at conferences in New York and San Francisco, sharing my story with thousands of entrepreneurs. One unforgettable moment was when a young woman in San Francisco, Mia, approached me after a talk. A startup employee, her boss had stolen her idea. "Your story showed me I'm not alone," she said. "I'm suing my company and taking back what's mine." I gave her my lawyer's number and said, "Mia, never let anyone define your worth. You write your own story." And speaking of stories, I recall a friend in Miami, Carlos Rivera, who faced similar betrayal. Carlos, a graphic designer, created a logo for a major brand, but his teammate took credit and got him fired. Carlos started his own studio, and now his logos are on every Miami billboard. He told me, "Jacob, betrayers just show us our true path." And he's right. Riley, Amanda, Trevor, they all thought they could ruin me, but they only made me sharper. Now, let me keep going, because this story hasn't reached its finale, and what happens next will blow your mind. After defeating Amanda Kline and bankrupting Apex Solutions, I thought I could finally breathe. Lunar Ventures was thriving with new offices in Boston and Seattle, and I'd become a sought-after speaker at major U.S. conferences. But life, as you know, always throws a curveball when you least expect it. On a Tuesday morning, as I prepared for a meeting with a new New York client, I got a text from an anonymous number. "Check your email. Jacob, you're not in the clear yet." My heart raced. I'd faced Riley, Amanda, Trevor. Who else? I opened my email and found an anonymous message with a PDF attachment titled "The Truth About Jacob Harrison." The 20-page report accused me not only of stealing Gravora data, but also of secretly working with a Chinese firm to sell Lunar Ventures' client secrets. Worse, it claimed irrefutable evidence and threatened to send it to all our major clients unless I paid $5 million within 48 hours. I felt like I was sucked into a new nightmare. This wasn't Riley or Amanda's doing. Both were defeated and incapable of such a sophisticated scheme. This was a new enemy, someone with resources and inside knowledge to hit me hard. I called Gerard, who was in Seattle opening a new office. "Jacob, this isn't just blackmail," he said after reviewing the report. "Someone's trying to destroy Lunar Ventures, and they know too much about you. We need to find who's behind this before the report leaks. Gerard hired a top London cybersecurity firm to trace the email while I contacted my lawyer to prepare for the allegations. But time wasn't on our side. Hours later, I got an email from a major Silicon Valley client asking if I was under investigation for selling data overseas. The rumors were spreading, and I knew if I didn't act fast, my reputation and Lunar Ventures would be ruined. I decided to confront the threat head on. I replied to the blackmail email, agreeing to meet the sender at a neutral Chicago location, a busy, magnificent Mile coffee shop. I brought a hidden recording device and alerted a private security firm Gerard hired to monitor remotely. When I arrived, a man in his 40s, wearing a gray suit and sunglasses, was waiting. He introduced himself as Ethan, but his American accent, with a slight Eastern European twinge, told me it wasn't his real name. Jacob, he said, voice ice cold. You have 24 hours to wire $5 million, or the report goes to all your clients and the FBI. Your choice. I stayed calm, asking, who's behind this? I don't pay ghosts. Ethan smirked. You don't need to know. But I wouldn't test us. You've made enemies who don't forgive. I left the coffee shop mind racing, but resolved not to cave. Our cybersecurity team traced the email to a Hong Kong server, but it was a dead end. However, they found a key detail. The PDF report contained passages nearly identical to an old Gravora internal document only a few people could access, including Riley Amanda and Patricia Wells, Gravora's former HR director, now my colleague at Lunar Ventures. I felt stabbed in the back. Patricia, the one who helped me expose Riley, who provided evidence against Amanda. No way. But doubt crept in. Patricia knew every detail of my Gravora tenure and had the skills to craft such a forged report. I decided to confront her, but carefully. I invited Patricia to my London office, pretending to discuss a new project. When she arrived, I went straight to the point. Patricia, I got a blackmail report, and some details could only come from a Gravora insider. I need the truth. Her face paled, and for a moment I thought she'd confess. But then she burst into tears, saying, Jacob, you think I'd betray you? After everything I left Gravora because of Riley, and I helped you against Amanda, I swear I'm not involved. She showed me her phone, all her emails and texts, to prove her innocence. I wanted to believe her, but part of me wasn't sure. I had our cybersecurity team check her devices, and the results shocked me. Her phone had been hacked for 3 months with spyware sending all her emails and texts to an Eastern European server. Now things were clearer. Someone wasn't just targeting me. They were after all of Lunar Ventures, and they had the ability to breach our systems. I held an emergency meeting with Gerard and our legal team, deciding to hire a Chicago private investigation firm to track down Ethan and his backers. Meanwhile, I contacted Klaus Weber and Marie Dubois, warning them about the blackmail report and pledging transparency. Klaus, as always, had my back. Jacob, I have seen enough dirty tricks in business. You've got me in your corner. Marie offered to hire a PR firm to counterattack publishing articles, praising Lunar Ventures' integrity. I agreed, and within 48 hours, positive stories began appearing, softening the rumor storm. But then another twist threw everything into chaos. The investigators discovered Ethan was a tech mercenary working for a shadowy group called Vortex Group, a firm specializing in corporate sabotage for companies wanting to crush competitors. Vortex wasn't tied to Riley or Amanda. They were hired by a bigger rival of Lunar Ventures, a New York-based consulting firm called Pinnacle Strategies. Pinnacle, it turned out, had been eyeing our clients since Lunar Ventures expanded to the US. They saw me as the biggest threat, and the blackmail report was step one in a plan to take me down and seize our market. I couldn't believe the scale of the conspiracy. This wasn't personal anymore. It was full-on corporate warfare. Gerard called a strategy meeting in London where we devised a daring plan instead of paying or defending. We'd work with the FBI to trap Vortex Group and Pinnacle Strategies. I contacted an FBI agent in Chicago who'd worked with Lunar Ventures on a prior fraud case. I handed over all evidence, the blackmail email, the PDF report, and info on Ethan. The FBI agreed to set up a sting using me as bait. I'd pretend to agree to pay the $5 million, meet Ethan again, and let the FBI nab him and anyone involved. The meeting was set at a Chicago hotel. I wore a hidden mic, and the FBI team was stationed in nearby rooms. When Ethan showed up, he wasn't alone. Two others were with him, including a senior Pinnacle Strategies executive I recognized from a San Francisco conference. I faked a wire transfer to a dummy account, and as soon as Ethan confirmed, the FBI swooped in, arresting all three. The bust sent shockwaves through the tech consulting world. Headlines across the U.S. covered the Pinnacle scandal, exposing how they hired Vortex Group to attack rivals like Lunar Ventures. Pinnacle Strategies collapsed within 3 months, and their CEO faced criminal charges. But my story isn't just about beating big enemies. It's about learning to stand tall through storms. I think of a friend in Los Angeles, Sophia Nguyen, fired from a startup for refusing to join a deceptive ad campaign. Sophia sued, won, and now runs an ethical ad agency trusted by brands like Nike. She told me, Jacob, every betrayal is a chance to redefine yourself. And she's right. Riley, Amanda, Pinnacle. They all tried to ruin me, but they only made me sharper. At Lunar Ventures, we didn't just survive, we thrived. By late 2025, we signed 30 new clients, opened offices in Miami and Austin. I was invited to keynote a global conference in Las Vegas, sharing my story with 10,000 people. One unforgettable moment was when a young guy from Dallas, Ryan, approached me after the talk. He said, "Your story made me quit a toxic job and start my own company. I signed my first contract yesterday." I hugged him, feeling my story making a real impact. Now, let me keep going, because this story still hasn't hit its climax, and what happens next will leave you stunned. After the Ethan arrests and Pinnacle's collapse, I thought I'd finally cleared every hurdle. Lunar Ventures was at its peak, with new offices in Miami and Austin, and I'd become a known name in U.S. tech consulting. But as I've learned, every victory comes with a new threat, and this one came from a place I never expected, my own past. On a Saturday evening, as I dined with Catherine at our Hampstead home in London, I got a call from a Chicago number. I didn't recognize it, but the voice froze me. "Jacob, it's Laura Mitchell. We need to talk. There's something about Gravora you don't know, and it involves you and Lunar Ventures." Laura Mitchell, a name that hit me like lightning. She was an old Gravora colleague, a brilliant but quiet data analyst who left the company months before Riley fired me. I hadn't spoken to her since, and now she was calling, voice trembling but resolute. I asked Laura, "What's this about? Why now?" She hesitated, then said, "Jacob, I have proof that Gravora wasn't just ruined by Riley. There's a bigger conspiracy and you're a target. Meet me in New York next week. I'll explain everything, but not over the phone. Adrenaline surged. A bigger conspiracy. After Riley, Amanda Pinnacle. What else? I called Gerard, immediately relaying the call. He was calm, but cautious. Jacob, Laura might know something critical, but it could be a trap. Go, but take security and record everything. I agreed, but couldn't shake the unease. Laura was always trustworthy, but why stay silent for 2 years? Only to surface now with a game-changing secret. I flew to New York, arranging to meet Laura at a small Flatiron restaurant. When I arrived, Laura was there, thinner than I remembered, with short hair and stressed eyes. She didn't waste time sliding a USB across the table and saying, "Jacob, you need to see this. But I warn you, it'll make you question everything." I plugged the USB into a secure laptop I brought, and what I saw floored me. It contained internal Gravora documents predating my hiring, detailing a secret plan codenamed Project Eclipse. The project, launched by senior executives excluding Riley, used Gravora as a front to collect sensitive data from European clients, then sell it to third parties in Asia and the Middle East. The documents revealed I was hired not just for my business skills, but for my ability to build European client relationships, making it easier for Gravora to access their data unsuspected. The ground felt like it collapsed beneath me. 6 years of devotion to Gravora, thinking I was building a legitimate branch, and I was just a pawn in a far dirtier game. Laura explained, "Jacob, I uncovered Project Eclipse right before I quit. I left Gravora because I didn't want to be complicit, but I kept these documents for protection. Recently, I heard a group of ex-Gravora executives is restarting the project under a new company, and they see you as a threat because you took their biggest clients." I asked, "Who are they, and why speak now?" Laura looked down, her voice softening. "Because I was scared, Jacob. These people aren't Riley or Amanda. They have money power, and they'll do anything to protect their secrets. But when I saw you take down Pinnacle, I knew you're the only one strong enough to stop them." I took the USB to London, handing it to Lunar Ventures' legal and cybersecurity teams. After a week of analysis, they confirmed the documents were real. And worse, they found that the new company, Orion Global, was run by a familiar name: David Hargrove Gravora's former board chairman, who retired after Riley's firing. David, a man I'd respected for his professionalism and vision, was the mastermind behind Project Eclipse. The documents showed Orion Global was contacting my old clients, including Nexora Labs, trying to convince them to share sensitive data with promises of free consulting services. If successful, Orion would not only steal Lunar Ventures' clients, but continue Gravora's illegal operations on a larger scale. I felt betrayed on a new level. Riley, Amanda Pinnacle, they were obvious enemies. But David Hargrove, he'd patted my shoulder, praised me to the board, and now I learned he'd used me as a tool from day one. I met with Gerard, who decided we couldn't let Orion Global proceed. "Jacob," he said, "this is your chance to not only protect Lunar Ventures, but clean up this industry. But it'll be dangerous. Are you in?" I didn't hesitate. I'd fought too many enemies to back down now. We devised a plan coordinate with the FBI and Europol to expose Orion Global while protecting our clients from being duped. But first, I needed an inside ally. I contacted Klaus Weber, my most trusted client. I flew to Munich met Klaus at his office, and told him the full truth about Project Eclipse. Klaus, who despised deception, was livid. Jacob, if this is true, I won't just cut ties with Orion. I'll make sure no European company works with them. He agreed to cooperate, pretending to negotiate with Orion Global to gather more evidence. Meanwhile, I reached out to Marie Dubois, who was equally shocked. Marie offered to hire a Paris-based private investigation firm to track Orion's European activities. With Klaus and Marie's support, I started feeling we had a shot. But then another twist threw everything into chaos. The night before we submitted evidence to the FBI, Laura Mitchell vanished. I received an email from her, sent from a new account, saying only Jacob, I'm sorry. They found me. Don't look for me. I panicked, calling the private investigators, but they found no trace of Laura in New York. Her phone was off her apartment empty. I feared David Hargrove and Orion had kidnapped her, or worse. Gerard called an emergency meeting in London where we decided to increase security for me and my family. Catherine used to my dramas, said Jacob, I trust you, but this time be careful. These people don't play games. I agreed, but knew I couldn't stop until Orion was destroyed. The investigators finally found a lead. Laura was spotted at a small New Jersey airport, boarding a private jet to Dubai. We suspected Orion had spirited her out of the U.S. to silence her testimony. The FBI expanded their investigation, working with Interpol to track Laura. Meanwhile, Klaus and Marie provided emails and recordings from their fake Orion negotiations, showing David Hargrove directly orchestrating illegal data collection. With this evidence, the FBI and Europol launched a coordinated raid, arresting David and 3 other Orion executives in New York and Geneva offices in August 2025. Headlines worldwide called it the decade's biggest consulting scandal, and Lunar Ventures was praised for its role in exposing the truth. But my story isn't just about toppling corrupt giants. It's about finding the true meaning of loyalty and resilience. I think of a friend in Chicago, Marcus Brown, fired for refusing to join a financial scam. Marcus started a nonprofit helping mistreated employees sue their companies. He told me, Jacob, every fight is a chance to change the world. And he's right. David Hargrove thought he could manipulate me, but he only made me more determined to protect what I believe in. After Orion's fall, Lunar Ventures became a beacon of transparency in consulting. We signed 40 new clients in 2026, opened offices in Los Angeles and Toronto. I was invited to advise a UN committee on business ethics, and my story became a Netflix documentary premiering at Sundance. But the most meaningful moment was an email from Laura Mitchell, sent from an undisclosed location. She wrote, Jacob, thank you for not giving up. I'm safe, and someday I'll tell you my story. I don't know where she is, but I hope she's found peace. And now, it's time to wrap up this story, but not before leaving you with a lesson I paid for, with sweat tears and sleepless nights. After Orion Global collapsed and David Hargrove and his cronies were arrested, I thought I could finally rest. Lunar Ventures had become a trailblazer in tech consulting with offices from Los Angeles to Toronto, and I was no longer Jacob Harrison, the guy fired via text at the French Open. I was Jacob Harrison, who turned fate's punches into steps to success. But before I say goodbye, let me take you through one final moment, a moment that changed how I see everything, and I hope will change how you see your own life. In the summer of 2026, I returned to Paris for the French Open, this time not in the VIP section, but in a special area for Lunar Ventures' partners. Rafael Nadal, still a legend, was vying for his 15th title. As I sat there with Catherine, who'd weathered every storm with me, I got a text, not from Riley Denton or a hidden enemy. It was from Riley himself. The message was brief. Jacob, I saw your Netflix documentary. I was wrong. Thank you for not letting me define you. All the best. I stared at the screen, emotions swirling. Part of me wanted to delete it, erasing the painful memories of him. But another part, the part that learned the meaning of forgiveness, not for Riley, but for myself, made me reply, Riley, I wish you the best too. Start fresh. I didn't expect a response, and he didn't give one. But in that moment, as Nadal lifted the trophy, I felt a relief I'd never known. I'd won not by crushing Riley, but by rising above his pettiness. My story isn't just about battles with Riley Amanda Pinnacle or Orion. It's about discovering the strength inside all of us when facing adversity. I think of a friend in Atlanta, Jasmine and Carter, fired from a startup for refusing a deceptive marketing scheme. Jasmine started her own firm and is now one of America's top digital content creators with millions of YouTube followers. She told me Jacob betrayers never win because they don't understand the value of integrity. And she's right. Every time I was knocked down by Riley's text, Amanda's our schemes, or David Hargrove's deceit, I realized the real enemy wasn't them. It was the fear, doubt, and temptation to give up inside me. And when I overcame those, I found a stronger version of myself. As I sit here sharing this with you, Lunar Ventures is more than a company. It's a symbol of resilience. We signed 50 new clients in 2027, from Silicon Valley giants to Austin startups. I founded a scholarship in my name helping young employees mistreated at work access education and start businesses. One recipient, Ethan from Detroit, wrote to thank me. Mr. Harrison, your story made me believe I can overcome anything. I just launched my first company, and I'll never quit. Reading that, I realized my legacy isn't million-dollar contracts or glowing headlines. It's people like Ethan Jasmine, and all of you who hear this story and decide to write their own. So what's the final lesson? It's simple but powerful. When life sends you a text, of firing a betrayal, of failure, don't let it define you. Let it free you. Riley thought his text would ruin me, but it opened the door to a life I never dared dream of. I want you to ask, what's the text in your life? Maybe a lost job, a rejected dream, or a trusted friend who turned away. Don't let it break you. Get up, find your allies, like I found Gerard, Klaus, and Marie, and use your skills, trust, and grit to build something greater. You don't have to fight alone. There are people out there like me cheering you on, and opportunities like my French Open moment with Gerard waiting for you to seize. Here's my challenge to you today. Write down one thing you want to change in your life. Maybe it's leaving a toxic job, chasing a shelved dream, or confronting someone who hurt you. Then take one small step toward it. Send an email, make a call, or just tell a friend you're ready. Because my story, dramatic with its plots and triumphs, isn't about me. It's about all of us ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges, choosing to write endings that shine. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If my story resonated, share your own in the comments. Tell me your text and what you're doing to turn it into a turning point. Subscribe, hit the bell, and together let's keep building stories of triumph one step at a time. I'm Jacob Harrison, and I know that whatever life throws at you, you have the power to turn it into something miraculous. See you in the next story.